Whether this is your first home or not, this 3-step game plan is going to help you eliminate the fear, the uncertainty, and the guesswork from your home buying journey and keep you focused on what possibly is the largest transaction of your life. To be honest, my fear is that most young Canadians have simply just given up on home ownership. It's sad, and I want to help. Check out this article here. You can see that people are simply disheartened with the home ownership situation in Canada. They feel like they have no chance of saving for a down payment, qualifying for a mortgage, or eventually buying a home for themselves to feel secure and have that Canadian dream. So I want to dispel those myths and give you a 3-step game plan so you can actually get a home right here in Southern Ontario. I can help you make home ownership work. This is how. Before we jump in, if you take value from this video, help me by liking, by sharing, and by subscribing. Share it with a friend also, do them a favor. Step 1 in the game plan is to eliminate all the impossible options by setting up your financing and understanding your limitations. No more window shopping. I know it sounds cliche, but you need a pre-approval from a bank or from a mortgage lender. I'm going to tell you why it's very important. Okay, let's say you go through the financing process, the pre-approval process, you get approved for 400, 500, 600, 700,000. Now you have a framework to work in. Instead of just flooding around the market looking at beautiful homes that you like in different areas, we know, let's say you get approved up to 500,000 for example's sake. We know that anything 500, 1,000 and above, you cannot afford. It keeps us focused and dialed in on exactly what's working with your financials, okay? It's important because most people get lost window shopping. They get lost in all the different options between new construction and resale and condos and townhouses. We need to dial in. The more you're dialed in, the more focused you are, the less guesswork there is. Now, with down payment options, I'm assuming if you're buying a property that's $500,000, you do not have $500,000 in cash. You need a down payment and lending from a mortgage broker. If you have $500,000 in cash, we better talk about some investment options along with that. So most people save for a down payment in 3 different ways, especially the younger people looking to buy their first home. The first way, it's the most cliched, is squirreling away your money. It's having a proper budget that you stick to consistently for the long term and then saving as much money as possible. Now, you might think it doesn't help, but having a tight budget and saving as much money as possible actually helped me buy my first home. When I was buying my first home just before closing, I had saved up the down payment and gave it to the lawyer just like I was supposed to, but I forgot to put in the closing costs, the lawyer fees, and the land transfer tax. So just 2 days before closing, I was scrambling to find another like $3,200 or something like that. I had to beg from friends, borrow, and I was in my grandparents' house. I went into the closet. I found a big jug full of pennies. I've told this story many times. I smashed it with a hammer in my grandfather's garage. I rolled all the pennies. It was another $362 or something like that. Like, I had to do what I had to do to get it done, and you need to do the same. You're gonna have to find money where you can. Spend less, save more. Number 2, check out this article. So you can use your RRSP to help with your first purchase, your first home here in Canada, up to $35,000. So you can take 35 grand from your RRSP. You'll have to pay it back later, but don't worry about that. Take 35,000 from your RRSP and use it toward your first home. If you're a couple, husband, wife, you can use up to 70,000 toward your first home. So that is a big step up. If you're starting from nothing, well, you can possibly go up to 35 or 70,000 if you're with someone else. Read this article. Number 3, often overlooked, and I find the ego gets involved here, is to get help from family. Yes, you might have to ask your immediate family members for help. I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of investors over the last decade, and I promise you, one of the big goals for investors is helping their children to buy their first property. Outside of planning for their retirement and getting more cash flow and taking more vacations and improving their lifestyle, one of the big goals for most investors is to have enough money to help their children buy a property in 5, 10, or 15 years. And many of them are buying condos and small homes now so that when their children are ready to move out in 5, 10, 15 years, that they already have a house that's ready to go. The mortgage is paying down. It's already appreciated. They're trying to help you. In fact, and I'm reading this note here from IG Wealth Management, they did a survey, and 72% of the parents they surveyed here in Canada were willing to help their children purchase a first home, giving their children an average of $145,000. Check out this excerpt from this article right here, okay? So it's important. Talk to your family, have the conversation, tell them what your goal is, tell them you're willing to be responsible financially, and that you promise to stick to a budget, that you promise to save, that you promise to pay them back or however it is, and you need their help. Be honest and direct. Worst case, they say no, and you're still gonna have to do the work anyway. Best case, they say yes, and you're way ahead of the game. Second part of the game plan is to choose one or two, not 3, not 6, not 10, 1 or 2 locations that make sense for your home purchase. Sounds cliche. Here's the 3-step formula, and it's in priority sequence here. It's in priority sequence. You need to first start with a location that A, has properties within your budget, right? That's an obvious step. Then it needs to be a location that's close enough to work. You must work. You need to earn money. Now, if you work from home, that means you're just much more flexible. If you're working in an office or you have to travel, you have to commute to your work, you need to be in a location that allows you to do that in a respectable amount of time. Yes, people travel 20, 30, 40, 45 minutes, sometimes an hour back and forth to work. If you have to do that for your first house, you need to do it. And if it's you and a wife or you and a husband, same thing. You need to be in a location that allows that commute to be possible. If you take public transit, you need to consider the GO train, the subway, bus lines, whatever it is, that's going to get you back and forth to work in a respectable amount of time. That's not going to drive you crazy. Number 2, even if you don't have a family and children now, I'm betting a lot of you, and I hope you do, want to have children sometime in the very near future. That's one of the first steps that happen after you kind of move in and get your first home. Now, you want to be in a location that has good schools or access to good childcare. Okay, it's very, very important. You may not be thinking about that now, but you will as soon as that baby comes. It's going to come to you. And if you're in a place where you don't have good options for schools, it's going to be a challenge and it's going to weigh on you hard. So if you, in priority sequence, if you're in a place where it's close to work and you can commute to work fairly easily, and it also has good schools, you're doing really well and you're investing in the future of the location also. Number 3, it's important, but in my view, it's the least important, is to be close to family, friends, and just general convenience, stores and this and that. Right? If you have to sacrifice something, that's where you're going to want to sacrifice. Your friends, I promise you, I've been through this already, will always be your friends. I thought my friends would always move in and be close to me, 5, 10 minutes, 20 minutes away, and all family would stay close. But the reality is, someone is 30 minutes away, another dude is 2 hours away on the east side. People are north, up 45 minutes. Like, it's crazy, and you're going to make new friends in between anyway. So don't do what your friends are doing. Do what's necessary for you, what's right for you, and something that fits your needs. Here's the reality that most people forget about locations here in the Golden Horseshoe. There's 8 million people between Oshawa and Niagara Falls. 8 million people, okay? There are lots of amenities everywhere. You're not necessarily sacrificing a ton by being 30 or 45 minutes away. Yes, it's a different area and different people, and but they're all the same stores. They're all the same big box stores and same amenities that you're used to, just in a different location, okay? People are making it work. There are lots of options in the Golden Horseshoe to suit almost any need. You have to realize that. And yes, I want to get you as close to what you want as possible, but remember, your budget and these criteria have to be met for you to have long-term success. Part 3 of the game plan, and possibly the most powerful part, is if you can make a short-term sacrifice to promote long-term gain with a secondary unit in your property, you could do extremely well, extremely quickly. What do I mean by that? If you can find a property that's a duplex, has a basement apartment, has an apartment beside it, or an apartment in the backyard, any kind of secondary apartment that you can rent out or have a mortgage helper, you are going to get very far ahead if you follow these quick steps. Listen closely. When I bought my first house, it had a basement apartment. It was nothing fancy. It had 3 bedrooms upstairs, a bathroom, a backyard, enough parking. I had everything I needed. It just in the basement there was an apartment, and we rented that separately. My carrying costs were just about $1,900 per month, including the mortgage, the property taxes, insurance, and utilities, okay? And I was collecting $1,450 from the basement, making my overall carrying costs just $450 a month. So for me and my wife, that was very, very easy to maintain with both of our salaries. We were working hard, trying to get ahead. And what it allowed us to do is save a ton of money. In the first 18 months of living in that duplex, we saved over $100,000. I can show you proof. And then we used that money to purchase our next family home. We knew we didn't want to live in a house with a basement apartment forever. It was a Kickstarter, something to get us into the market quickly, and it allowed us to save as much money as possible so we could fund our next family home, and we did that. So I want you to do the same if you can. If you're willing to make that small sacrifice, you stand to gain tremendously. Some other benefits of having an apartment in your first property is it allows you to qualify for a mortgage easier. If there's a secondary income in the property, the bank and the lender is going to factor that into your total debt service ratios. It's going to make qualifying easier, or it'll allow you to qualify for more. If you could only qualify for 500, maybe you qualify for 550 or 600 because there is another unit at the property. So there are multiple benefits to this. So if you want to know more about how apartments work in your first properties, book a call below. Fill out a survey. I want you to answer a few questions so I get to know a little bit more about you. And when we come to the meeting, I'll be prepared to give you my best advice. Okay? And I'm happy to point you in the right direction, even if we don't end up working together. I want to help as many young Canadians as possible. If you want to read my book, I highly suggest you do. It'll tell you about what's happening in the market right now, what's happening with interest rates, how we're getting around it, how investors are still making money. Download it right here in the description. I appreciate you listening. Talk soon.